Hello there and welcome to a new video. This time we're going back to fundamentals, and hey, you can't say fundamentals without saying fun, with site-directed mutagenesis design, which, yes, I am basically following the classic Strategene quick change mutagenesis kit, which was brand new when I was an undergraduate, so that gives you some kind of perspective. So for those of you who don't know, this is the core principle of site-directed mutagenesis. Here you have two primers, one for each strand, and each containing the mutation that you desire. And it's not strictly a PCR, it's more of a PR because, as I'm so fond of saying, these primers, it runs a lap right round and smacks into its own behind. And this primer here does the exact opposite. It runs around the other direction and smacks into its behind. And it results in these templates, which they don't actually show it in the diagram, but there's like a small nick where the collision takes place. And there's a nick here because the backbone isn't complete. That's important. And you basically have all these cycles of this reaction, which generates a whole load of these nicked templates. But then, of course, you still have the parental DNA hanging around, and that's bad, because compared to a weird nicked PCR or PR product, then this will transform into your E. coli and will spoil your day. So you use DPN1 restriction enzyme, which has two wonderful distinguishing features. First, it's very, very, very common, and I mean crazy common, and it detects methylated and hemimethylated DNA. So any stuff that has been through the insides of an E. coli, like your plasmid, will get blown to tiny, tiny bits. As a result, your soup, as I affectionately call it, will comprise a mixture of your attempt to make a version of the plasmid with the mutation, plus nicks, and the ruins of the parents. That is why in any mutagenesis, I cannot emphasize this strongly enough. When it comes to adding the DPN1 and then mixing, you mix like your life depends on it. There is no such thing as too much mixing, but there is such thing as too little. Okay, moving forward, you transform E. coli. I'm not going to cover heat shock transformation. But what I am going to go into is, okay, you want to design your own. In the Strategene manual, which this is one of the times I really, really pay attention to the manual, they have, well, it's not a secret formula. It's a formula for arbitrarily calculating the temperature of melting of the primer that you're going to use for mutagenesis. And yes, time was I would calculate this on paper with a calculator, but since the key to anything is get a lazy person to solve your problems, and I'm that lazy person. So let's divert over to, hang on, okay, not there, and where is it? Okay, I'm really not getting the hang of this, am I? Yeah. Okay, so let's take a brief aside at, hey, all my links page, which you can access in my bio. It contains lots of important things, including the Buy Me a Coffee link. So if you feel that my kind words have maybe helped you out of a spot, then feel free to, pay me for a beverage. And also, if you're really, really a keen bean and want to read ahead, the handy dandy cloning manual does contain a lot of the material that will be featured in my subsequent videos, but not all. I will endeavor to surprise you. But let's focus on this guy up top, which is the Super Mutagenesis Calculatorinator, which if you click on this, it will open up a Google Sheet. But here is the crazy, crazy important part. You have to save a copy for yourself so that you can edit it. Because otherwise, well, basically, this is only allowing you to view. Since I wrote the thing, get to edit, but you don't until you make a copy for yourself. Okay, let's proceed. So as you can see, here we have the length of the oligo in question, the number of changes introduced, and the GC concentration. So let's go on over to CLC Workbench, and we will show, here's a sequence that I worked on previously. It's tab 1, and we're going to imagine that we want to change. What is Q40? Okay, and we're back. Sorry about that. Had to pause. One of my colleagues came into the office. That is how spontaneous these videos are. So where we were is, here we have an amino acid, which I'm totally picking at random, which codes for, I want to say glutamic acid. But anyway, the point is, its codon is GAG, and so in order to change it into CAC, which is the histidine codon, we're going to introduce two changes. That is important. So, and the first thing we do, so we've got those two changes in mind. That's very important. But now let's count out well, basically in a small amount. So in this case, I'll pick 12 nucleotides in each direction, but you have to stop on a G or a C. That's important for good primer design at both ends, because this primer is going both ways, in a manner of speaking. So the length of this primer is 27 bases, and it has two changes. So now we switch over. So the length, 27, changes 2, and now it's a question of the GC. And if you notice, those guys in white, you don't change. That's actually the maths columns. Point is, this is still showing pink because it's not reached the goal temperature of 78 degrees. So now, oh, also I need to include how many GC changes. So let's skip back over and now count the G's and C's. I know, not glamorous, but this is the cutting edge of science. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, no, we don't count the 11 and 12 because those are changed. So 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Okay, so now back over to the innator and we plug in 19, enter. 77.94. So we are close, but we're not quite there yet. I mean, yeah, you'd think it's only a fraction of a degree. If you had to, you could get away with this, but let's not be sloppy about it. So because we're so close, I'll add just a single nucleotide, the nearest C there, and let's see the change that makes. So I'll do this on a separate line for illustration purposes. So we're now 28 nucleotides long, but we are 20 GCs, and boop, it's green, which is a win. That means it has the change that we desire. So now what we do, we grab our copy this sequence, and then we take it on over to dear old Microsoft Word. And this will be our forward primer. We'll drop that guy in. Yes, pasting is getting smarter. Okay, so now double check where the GAG is located, because it looks obvious, but it's always a good idea to double check. So it's GCC GAG. So we notice GCC GAG. And now, also, personally, I changed the case so that I can see where I've actually made the change, because, well, it's a good way to just keep a track of things. And then, similarly, C. Okay, but we're not quite done yet. So now let's fire up the reverse primer as well. But we need to create the complementary strands. So Control Copy, bring up APE, paste, and then cut reverse complement. Yeah, APE, love this program, would be lost without it. And when you paste it in, yes, pasting is still getting smarter. Notice how your CAC became GTG. That is good to double check. Just as by bizarre coincidence, the end of the oligo is exactly identical, but that's just a happy coincidence. But we're not done yet. One last thing we need to do, which is due diligence. And trust me, as tempting as it is to skip, this is something you should not do. Okay, so we will throw down a new sequence entry. Pardon me. And yes, cut this. And there we have a sequence for the forward primer. Now, similarly, we duck on over to Word and we grab our reverse gentleman as well. Copy, back into CLC, over to New, over to Sequence, drop, and then cut, and then X, and then over here. And why am I going through all this? Many of you may have guessed this already. First, I have to save these sequences, so I'll just save them straight. Save and save. Now, if I select the forward and reverse primers, and you can do this by various other programs, but I will choose to use the assemble sequences to reference setting in CLC Workbench, but dealer's choice. The point is, this is how you double check that you haven't made a boo-boo in the primer design, because heaven forbid you mutate the wrong thing, because then you won't know anything's wrong until it's far too late. I have to change the minimum complement down because 50 is longer than this whole primer, so that would never do. So now, finish, and now let's go ahead and turn on translation before we even check. under nucleotide information, translation, show, and translation frame is on. Now we tell it, we want you to find where there is a sequence mismatch. Find conflict. And what do you see? We have our forward primer in green, reverse primer in red, and yes, E to H. There you have it. And similarly, the same rule applies if you want to introduce multiple changes. You want to maybe change both of these guys, or not so close amino acids within a certain bound, so long as you can get a primer that isn't going to be both crazy expensive and crazy complicated, then this is your friend. There are more complex tricks with mutagenesis, but that is a story for another time. But now, forwarding back to our PowerPoint slideshow, I just want to take a chance to say thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.